Hi everybody. First of all, I would like to give a huge, heartfelt thank you to everyone who was concerned that I didn't have a winter jacket in minus 25 Celsius weather in my last video. Kicking the temperature down to minus 30 Celsius. For anyone reading in Fahrenheit, that's really cold. So to assure you that I do have winter clothing, I have come dressed tonight. Now, the weather tonight is only minus 14 Celsius, which in Fahrenheit is really cold. But I was excited to come out and do this video anyway, because I want to launch our third imaging challenge. Last summer, you guys came through and imaged a very cool galaxy. A galaxy called Hoag's Object, which was a true ring galaxy. That means the material of the galaxy formed a ring with a distinct separation between the ring and the core of the galaxy. It was tiny and very dim, and you guys came through with flying colors. In the second challenge, we attempted to image Hind's Variable Nebula. This one here was a nebula that was very close to a variable star, and it changed the shape and reflection of the nebula as the star fluctuated. Now, that happened to lie in a vast patch of dark dust, and we had some wonderful close-up and wide-field views of this object. I've been waiting to do our third challenge for months now. In fact, the sky hasn't been clear much since October, so this is now 3-4 months later. So I'm sorry to keep you waiting, but the challenge for this season is Planetary Nebulae. That's right, Planetary Nebulae, the remnants of long ago stars. Stars much like our own sun, which came to the end of their life and launched their material throughout the galaxy.
After billions of years of life, main sequence stars like our sun exhaust all of the hydrogen fuel in their core, and they expand into these massive red giant stars. In this phase, the stars become unstable and they begin to shed their outer layers into space through stellar winds. These expanding shells of gas drift outward over tens of thousands of years. Now, once the core is exposed, it collapses into a hot, dense white dwarf. The intense ultraviolet radiation from this remnant core ionizes the surrounding gas and causes it to glow in characteristic colors, reds from hydrogen and blues and greens from oxygen and other elements. The result is a thin, expanding shell or series of shells and concentric circles of glowing gas, what we call a planetary nebula. Despite the name, planetary nebulae have nothing to do with planets. The term actually comes from their round, planet-like appearance in early telescopes.
Now, this challenge is going to prove a little tricky because it is winter, which means for some of us, it's kind of cold. Also, a lot of planetary nebulas have already set with the galactic core. So for some of us, they're going to be few and far between, making them logistically tricky to find and capture. But I have faith in you. You can pick whichever nebula or nebulae you like. Get your pictures in to me by the end of March, and I'll include them in the follow-up video. And we'll see if you can do better than me at capturing planetary nebulae in the winter. Now, tonight, I'm going to try to capture a planetary nebula. It's a very cool one called Jones-Emberson 1, also called the Headphones Nebula. I don't particularly think it looks like a pair of headphones, but you tell me what you think. Now, this is a fairly dim object, but it's actually rather large in my 1000 millimeter reflector. I'm going to be using my 6-inch Celestron 6SE telescope, which runs on an Alt-AZ mount on a wedge. That's it behind me. So join me tonight for some astrophotography fun as we attempt to image some winter planetary nebulae. Hi, my name is Chris, and welcome to my channel. Those were coyotes.
The night turned out to be pretty clear, which was great, but the moon was just past full, so the contrast in the sky wasn't spectacular. I wanted to image both in broadband using the Antlia quad filter that I've really been happy with lately, as well as in narrowband using the Svibani 220 dual band hydrogen alpha and oxygen 3 filter. Now, because of the low contrast, I didn't get much with the Antlia, but the star collars turned out pretty well. I spent most of the night imaging with the dual band filter, and with that I was pretty happy, but I wanted to spend more time on this target. Unfortunately, we had some weather moving through the following day, but the night after was going to be nice again. So I left my gear sitting outside on the pier covered. I'm using a reversible and breathable air conditioner cover, which seems to work very well to cover the telescope. And it has airflow vents, which keep moisture from building up on the telescope when it's covered. I ended up running the telescope for 2 more nights. I got some additional signal on Jones-Emberson, and then I tried a few more planetary nebulas. I wanted to pause the video at this point so that I could walk you guys through the images that I've been taking and showing you what's working and what really hasn't been working, which should give you a pretty good idea of why imaging planetary nebulas right now is a perfect challenge. First up, we have the Jones-Emberson 1 planetary nebula. It looks to me like a little helmet, like a helmet of a little space person. So if you had a little space guy drawn down here, that would be his head with his helmet. I think that's what it really looks like. Now this image is, how much is this? This was close to 5 hours of processing. Yeah, right up here, 98 frames. I've gone through a couple of iterations of this image already, and this is the processing that I've been happiest with. So it really draws out the reds and the yellows and a bit of the greens. And interestingly enough, and I wasn't sure if I'd be able to get this from my Bortle sky, but you can start to make out a slightly different shade of green right in the center of this nebula, and right in the middle. I think that right there is the little white dwarf star that is the remnant of this red giant that had shed off its outer layers. So this is working out pretty well, I think. The next one I want to show you is the second nebula that I've been pursuing, and that is the Cat's Eye. Now this one, 130 frames. So that is 6.5 hours of integration time so far. And all of this was done with the dual band, narrow band hydrogen alpha and oxygen 3 filter. And this is pretty cool. So you've got the little galaxy here. I think that's the little galaxy over here on the side too. And then right in the center, you've got this this crazy structure. It's got these like veins coming out of the center, and kind of looks like an eye crossed with like this umbrella-ish shape. And if you look really closely, right here in the to the side here, you can start to make out a little bit of hydrogen alpha, and I'm expecting that. I've seen that in some of the better images from better skies and bigger telescopes. So I was really hoping that I'd be able to bring that out as well. So that's kind of cool already too. I tried 2 other planetary nebulas over the last number of days. And one of them, I'm going to have a hard time pronouncing. It is Purgathofer, Purgathofer. This is Purgathofer Weinberger 1. Now, this planetary nebula, this is it. This is hours of integration time. I don't remember exactly how much I ended up keeping for this image, but the planetary nebula is right here. It's very hard to see. It has a very, very low surface brightness because this nebula is almost 1/2 the size of a full moon. So even though if you look at its magnitude, it's actually quite bright. But because that light is scattered over such a large area, we can barely make it out. Now, I know this is the right region of space because I've compared this image to other images for star placement, and I could have run this through and plate solved it as well, but I'm pretty confident that this is it, and I can really make out a little bit of the reddish hydrogen alpha down here. It's just lost up near the top of the nebula. I don't think this is one that I'm going to be able to pursue, I'll be honest. Unless I make it out to a dark sky and I've got a solid 5 hours that I can dedicate to this, even with narrowband, I might be pushing it. I think this is a long-term project from a dark sky site. But if you want to try for this one, that would be a very cool challenge. And I know some of you have really nice skies that you're imaging under. Now, the other one that I wanted to share with you, because I think it's really cool, and I'm not going to be able to image it myself. This is NGC 2392. NGC 2392 is a tiny little planetary nebula. I would say in terms of size, it is similar to Hoag's object. So if you had trouble with that one, this is right about the same size. And what makes it even more challenging is look how bright this core is, and look how small the core is. Now, with Hoag's object, the core was just a bright spot. But if you look up this nebula and you see some of the images that people have taken with very large telescopes, there is actually detail inside here. And space-based telescopes really showcase what that detail looks like, and it looks really, really cool. What I'm hoping for, or what I was hoping for, was to be able to at least discern the outline. It's kind of a little guitar pick shape, I think, and it has a bit of a structure to the side that I ought to be able to make out with a 6-inch telescope, provided that I had really good seeing and good guiding, and that I didn't overexpose. So that's the other part. So imaging a nebula like this, I think, would require doing a composite of frames with different exposure lengths and possibly even gains. Now, I think I'm shooting at a gain that gives me the most sensitivity, but I'm going to have to play around with the exposures to see if I can find that middle ground so that I can get the core, but I also want to be able to go further out because these layers of dust, they extend further and further out. So the material that was ejected by the star kind of goes all the way out to here if you really increase the stretch factor. So that'll be very neat to be able to do that. That is a stretch goal for me, if you would. But that would be pretty interesting. So if you're looking for a real challenge and your telescope can handle it, that would be a pretty cool one right there.
Now, in case you're wondering, Jones Emberson did come from that same astronomy issue of 101 Weirdest Cosmic Objects. This is the same issue that I have been drawing inspiration from for the other imaging challenges. But like I said, I'm not going to specify which planetary nebulas you should image. You can pick those yourselves, so pick your favorite ones. I want to wish you all best of luck with your imaging, and please send me what you've been able to gather by the end of March, along with a short clip of the gear that you've used and a description of your equipment. If I get your images and clips in on time, I will include them in my follow-up video. Whether you choose to submit your images or not, I'd like to wish all of you the best of luck in this season's imaging. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, and clear skies.